The nature reserve is home to many caves, large and small. This week, the museum caving unit will be exploring a small solutional cave called Pete's Paradise on the western side of the rock. In order to access such caves, the unit employs the expertise of volunteers from the Gibraltar Fire and Rescue Service. Ian Bonfiglio and Nicholas Ferrari assist the museum in accessing these remote sites. Tyson Lee Holmes also joins the team. He's a senior researcher at the museum and is well versed in the various formations that make up these small solutional caves. As the unit progresses into the cave, let's visit Professor Finlayson back above ground to find out more about some of the discoveries made here.
Pete's Paradise represents in some ways a number of caves that we have in Gibraltar which date from after 10,000 years ago. Now, 10,000 years ago is a significant marker in that the climate ameliorates and becomes very similar to the present day. The ice age has gone, sea level rises, and the kinds of activities and occupations that we had prior to this by Neanderthals and Upper Paleolithic peoples change altogether. And what we find in caves such as Pete's Paradise and a number of other caves on the rock, many of which are quite closed, you need to climb in the dark, is that the caves are being used mainly as burials. Here's a human femur as an example. What we find is two periods of burial can be distinguished. The first one we would associate with the first farmers. Now this is an interesting question because farming is a fairly novel thing. It emanates from the Fertile Crescent, present-day Syria, Turkey, and the traditions, the techniques of farming and agriculture spread westwards across the Mediterranean. Some people thought that it was really the cultural aspects that spread the traditions, but I think genetic evidence is clearly showing that actually people were moving with these objects. And the evidence we have in Gibraltar, it's the first time we find ceramics. No Neanderthal ever made pottery. This kind of vessel from one of these caves is associated with gifts or offerings which are made with the burial, presumably to do with an afterlife. We don't really know, we can't get into the brains of these people. But one of the things that characterizes the Neolithic is that the wheel hasn't been invented, the potter's wheel, so these are handmade. They decorate them, and the types of decoration are quite indicative of the cultures. The techniques originated in the Middle East and they spread westwards. They arrived quite early in the Western Mediterranean, probably because the people are coming by sea and the tradition spread pretty quickly. So by 7,000 years ago approximately, in fact probably 7,500 years ago, these Neolithic people are here. They're probably meeting the local peoples who are hunter-gatherers, and they're bringing with them pots and techniques such as agriculture. Although we find that most of what they're doing in Gibraltar, rather than having to do with agriculture, has more to do with fishing. A lot of these people are fishermen. And the other thing that we find are artifacts such as these beautifully polished hand axes. They polish them into these shapes. Multi-purpose tools, really. Some of them could be used even in digging the soil for farming or for cutting wood particularly. So this is another characteristic of these Neolithic peoples. Even though the agricultural side of that revolution is perhaps not so evident in Gibraltar because they tend to do more fishing than anything else. They were quite skillful. I mean, here, for example, we have, it's from a shell, but it's been shaped into a ring. It doesn't fit my fingers, but or polishing stone. This is a fragment to create bracelets. So that's the Neolithic around 7,500 years ago, and these people remain in the area for quite some time. Then the next obvious period of burial within the rock is a little bit later, around 3,000, 3,500 years ago, and that's what we would generally term the Bronze Age. It follows an earlier Copper Age, and it precedes the Iron Age. And these are people who now are capable of shaping metal, bronze. And again, the technique comes from the Middle East. Everything seems to spread across the Mediterranean westwards. And we have these Bronze Age people again. They may be local inhabitants mixing with the mariners who are coming from the east, or the people who are coasting, or interchanging ideas. We find lots of burials, and again, ceramics seems to be the indicator. Curiously, they don't seem to decorate. Some of these are really quite large, as you can see. Again, associated with human remains as burials. They don't seem to decorate them as much as the earlier people. Fashions change, but some of them are quite spectacular, as this example gives us, or even this one here. So those are the two periods that I think the kinds of caves that we're looking at the moment. So this period, if you like, starting from about 7,500 years ago to around 3,000 years ago, quite a long period, a few thousand years there, is typified by these kinds of inhabitants, traditions, and people from the Middle East coming westwards, largely by sea, and bringing us these examples of novelties, things that are completely new and you don't find earlier.
Back to Pete's Paradise, and the caving unit faces a tight squeeze. With not much space to maneuver, the only way to make it through is to shuffle on their bellies. The cave is filled with earth and dust, so it can be a messy affair. Soon enough, they've wriggled through, and the cave opens up into a larger chamber.
Pete's Paradise Cave was named after Peter Mann, which is one of the team members of the Gibraltar Cave Research Group, one of the colleagues of George Balau at the time. And when he entered here, he said that it seemed like paradise to him, so the name sort of stuck. Pete's Paradise Cave is a solutional cave, one of the many solutional caves in Gibraltar. The Rock of Gibraltar is a karst landscape. It means that it's made of limestone, which is permeable, and as rainwater starts filtering down, it starts dissolving the rock. Now, rainwater actually combines with carbon dioxide in the atmosphere and creates a weak acid, carbonic acid. That goes into the soil. The soil could be acidic, it could make the water even more acidic, and as it percolates down, it deteriorates the limestone and gets rid of the calcium carbonate from the limestone. As that happens, carbonate precipitates as well can form these cave formations like stalactites, stalagmites, etc. But that's how the actual cavity itself is initially formed, just by dissolving the rock itself. In here we can see some rimstone pools. At the moment, most of them are quite empty because we haven't had enough rain this winter so far. But this can fill up actually with a lot of water as it percolates through the rock. We're at the beginning of February at the moment. Normally by this time of year we would have a lot more water having percolated down from the rocks above into this cave system. At the moment you can see in the air there's quite a lot of dust. It's still quite dry. As we get more rain, slowly it will go percolating down and these pools will fill up to the rim basically. So here we have an example of a rimstone pool in Pete's Paradise Cave. This one is being fed directly at the moment by a drop behind me. As this fills up to its current level, the water will start overflowing and start filling up the pool below. And that is basically how the cave formations in this cave have been formed. This water that we see here, this is all precipitation. This is all rainfall that, at the moment, it's not raining outside, but as it rains, it soaks into the rocks. Limestone is permeable, so it'll allow water to seep through it. And it takes days, sometimes weeks or months, to get into certain cave systems. So these cave formations take thousands of years to actually form how you see them today. It's really important for us to stress the conservation aspect of the work that we do. We really advocate that cave formations should not be even touched if you can avoid it, let alone broken like you can see in some parts here. Cave formations can tell us a lot about past climates, how the cave formed, what things like CO2 levels in the cave were, temperature, humidity. It can give us a lot of information, and it really is important for us to be able to conserve those aspects of the cave. Historically, because caves have been accessible to people in general, there has been a lot of vandalism in the caves, either by just bringing litter in or defacing cave walls with graffiti, breaking cave formations. This unfortunately has negative effects. We would like every cave to be accessible to people to see the marvels in the cave itself, but unfortunately we have to restrict them for that reason.